This week on JTV, we explore the art and science of pressing flowers. That art has been around for a long time. And as a science, many museums have herbariums, where botanical specimens are pressed so that they can be researched later on. This week, our floral arrangement is two-dimensional and takes some planning because our flowers are pressed inside the Webster Flower Press from Floracraft. So let's get started with today's project. Using flower pressing kits and doing flower pressing and creating the project that we will today is a great seasonal project for kids. Remember that when we're pressing the flowers themselves, it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to get a product that we're going to be able to place into our frame. This is a new flower press that's available from Floracraft. It makes it easy for you to press flowers. Let's take a look at how it operates. We've got some screws on the corners, and those we tighten after our product's inside. The wing nuts are easy to get kids involved because they can come back and tighten them or loosen them. It's easy for their little fingers to work with. Inside here, we've got some flowers that we started about 4 weeks ago. We have the cardboard spacer that goes in between, another piece of the cardboard that helps absorb the moisture of the flowers themselves. Our flowers are then placed between 2 of the drying papers. These are some pansies that I put in here in the spring, and look at how great those look. We'll go down a couple more layers, and there we've got some beautiful leaves. Here we have some lily of the valley. I just planted a few of them in my yard, so I only had a few blossoms this spring, but I wanted to save them especially for this project. It's important to think about the seasonal flowers that are growing and some of the memories that the product themselves might have. If we think about how flower pressing actually started, one of the most common things were for people to remove something from a bridal bouquet and place it in the family Bible. That one flower was a memory that people could keep. So these lilies of the valley are memories of my first planting this last spring. Here we've got a few shamrocks. And another great little variegated foliage from my garden. Those are the types of products we'll be working with today, but I also wanted to show you the process to pressing the flowers themselves. So, we put the piece of cardboard directly on the bottom of our press. I went out into the garden and picked a few seasonal products for today so that we could talk about the different items that we can place into the flower press. We'll add one of the drying pieces of cardboard and then our white sheet of paper. The white sheet of paper is important because it's going to preserve the natural color of the flowers themselves. We don't want to use any colored paper or anything like that because that could transfer that color directly to the flower when the moisture is being pressed out of it. If we think about foliages first, this is a great looking fern. We can cut that to the size that we want and lay that on the paper. Also think about little pieces too. We can use small pieces of fern as well. So remember, every little bit of product we have can be helpful in our flower pressing project. We don't want to place too many items in this area because we don't want to have too much moisture inside there. Too many products could cause it to mold inside. It's also important when we're thinking about a flower like this. A flower that has a big center like that is sometimes difficult for us to press. We'd have to do one at a time on a sheet. We want to make sure that all of our product is remaining inside the press and is covered by our second sheet of paper. Then our another absorbent piece of cardboard is put in between there, and then we can start another layer with a piece of paper. Thinking about something like Liatris that has a lot of moisture inside there and is very thick, sometimes might be a difficult process for us to press that securely. What we might think about is actually taking that Liatris apart and then reconstructing it later after the pieces have been pressed. So we'd remove the pieces of this and press them individually so that we were able to then lay the stem itself and put all of these pieces back together at the end. That's what makes it a great hobby for the winter time or a great rainy day, where you're going to take your time and work with the product. Now we might have wonderful little flowers like this that we can press in their entirety. Again, a sheet of paper and my drying cardboard, and we're ready for the next layer. Queen Anne's lace, a perfect product for us to press. We might lay that down, figure out exactly how that's going to look, and lay that on our sheet of paper. Now you'll notice with the pansy blossoms that I had here, in this case, I laid some of them flat, but I also laid other ones on their side so that I could have different dimensions with the products themselves. That's going to come in handy when we're actually making our picture. It's great because the flower press kit comes with a refill package of the drying cardboard, the spacing cardboard, and also the sheets of paper. Now, knowing that we're going to lay that directly on top and adding our drying piece of cardboard. Because this cardboard is corrugated, it's the one that we have on the outsides. That gives us space in between after we place our board on so that we're able to tighten it. Presently, we're just going to put our wing nuts on, all four corners. We want to make sure that our wing nuts spin freely. First off, we don't want to tighten this real tight. That's a real temptation. You know, kids, they're going to want to crank this down. Hurry and press that flower. One of the things that's important about flower pressing, it teaches us to have patience when we're creating something. So right now, this is tight. We'll come back every other day or so and tighten these, maybe 1 or 2 turns. We can mark the days off on the calendar, and that way we know when we're getting close to having our flowers pressed and ready to create something. That brings me to our JTV trick of the week. If you don't have a flower press, there's other opportunities for you. And Ma Belle comes through for us in that case. We can use a simple phone book to press some of our flower product. In this case, I've put a note on the outside to tell people to be cautious that I have flowers placed inside. I've also used a sticky note to tell me exactly where I've placed my floral product. In this case, the sheets of the phone book act as the drying paper and help remove the moisture. These are some leaves that I pressed about 4 weeks ago. I placed them inside the phone book, and then I placed extra product on top to weight it down. Again, the thinner your flower material, the better off we are. Say we wanted to use some coleus leaves like this. We can remove those leaves, mark the page with a sticky note, and place those inside and gently close our book. Also think about the ability to dry herbs and things like that. It works perfectly. Or say I had something that I wanted to remember and have as a memory. Let's see. My little topiary tree. I got this when we started JTV, so it has special memories for me. So let's just take one little branch off of my boxwood tree, and we can place it in there next to my coleus leaves. I could even make a note on my sticky note telling me what that product was from and what special memory it was for. Closing our phone book and weighting this down, and in 4 to 6 weeks, I'll have beautiful pressed boxwood branches to use in my next picture frame. So let's get started with our picture project. I found this great little shadow box at the craft store. It has a hinged back, and we're going to place our pressed flower arrangement right inside the box. I have all the different materials that I'm going to work with. My pansies, my lily of the valley, and several different types of foliages. We'll glue those right onto this back using our Styro-glue. It's just a white glue that allows me to place a little bit on the back and place the flowers exactly where I want them. Any type of white craft glue will work well. First thing I have to do is decide how I'm going to place these items in here. Because they're very fragile, it's important for me to map it out in my mind. So, we know we have a box that looks like that. And I've got the lily of the valley as a line flower. So I think that's going to look good back here. My pansies will come in here. A couple of those that are looking face forward. And then maybe one of those that's off to the back side, back here. A little bit of my foliages will come down here. Then I've got a little open area on that side. It's important not to fill in everything with my floral pattern. Although, if that's what I wanted to do, I could make a tapestry type effect too. There's lots of different things, and the creativity comes from you and the project that you want to create. So, we'll start with our lily of the valley. And I'll need a scissors. So that looks just about right. That will be our tallest placement in our little arrangement. And we'll use the shorter one. We want to be extra gentle with the flowers themselves. We'll trim that one off just a little bit. That's already starting to look so great. I love the way the lily of the valley looks on that background. It's a great parchment background too, so it's not too white, and it really accentuates all the detail in that lily of the valley. Here's our side placement. With our pansy. And here's one where we can see the exact front of that pansy. Trim off that stem, place another one right there. If you think about kids with their little tiny fingers, they'll be really good at placing these around. I really like this variegated foliage, but it's a little bit too big for this presentation. So maybe one of the 4-leaf clovers will be better. Yeah, that looks great. And then one of these red leaves. So now we have a pretty good idea of what this is going to look like. And now comes the gluing. I'll use my knife to move my pieces off of the palette below. A knife works great because I can get that point underneath and gently move everybody off to the side. So we'll use a bit of the glue. What I like to do is apply some of it to the back of a piece of paper. I can also use it here, and that works okay, but sometimes it needs to be even a little more delicate. A double-ended Koei wood pick will be great for applying very small quantities of glue to the back of the flowers themselves. Here, I want to apply it to the stem itself rather than the flowers, because the stem is the heavier portion of the flower and will allow it to stay in place better. One of the little flowers could break off, and then it would come off of the back. Placing that and pressing it down, ever so gently. Our other lily of the valley, the same way. Again, on the back side of the stem. Notice that I've done it at the top and the bottom of the stem, so that when I glue it in place, if any moisture would get in there, it won't cause it to fall forward. Placing that one, and again, I left room for this side shot of the pansy. Little glue there and glue on the stem. Gently press it down. I'll continue using the same technique with all of the rest of my elements, gluing them into place. Okay, so we finished that process. We can close our frame, and we have our beautiful picture. Now remember, when we're thinking about meanings too, we can always reference our floral fan deck. We have Lily of the Valley in there, and if I look at the floral fan deck and look up Lily of the Valley, on the back there's a meaning. Lily of the Valley, sweetness, a return of happiness, purity of the heart. You made my life complete. It also protects us from evil spirits, and it's the birth flower for May. That gives us ideas of what this might be for. I could hang this in the JTV studio to protect us from evil. What's that supposed to mean? I could give it to a friend that represents sweetness. So there's all sorts of fun things that we can do. If we have frames around the house, those are ideal for making pressed flower arrangements. We could also create bookmarks and laminate them at the local copy store. We've got all sorts of ideas that we can create using pressed flowers. It takes a little bit of forethought and patience, but the memories last forever. So this week, we learned about using flowers in a completely different way, pressing them to create wonderful memories for great gift items. Keep having fun with flowers.